Burnout is a real problem that we have all faced at one point or another. With the evolution of digital devices and notifications, and the overall ambition and goals of trying to do it all, the overwhelm and also the exhaustion that comes with the mental burden that ultimately lead us down a detrimental effect in the long term on our physical and mental well-being. I think naturally, as entrepreneurs and really passionate individuals who are building towards their dream, it's easy to be stuck in a zooming ahead sprinting mode without taking a break. But I think if we're stuck in this state for too long, it can lead to some detrimental long-term health issues. I want to dedicate today's video to all of you who reach out to me to ask how I have dealt with burnout in my past, and especially now that I'm a parent, having to juggle everything's happening in my life and business. And I really had a thought about all the things that had worked for me, and I want to share them with you here, so hopefully that you guys can also benefit from taking some of these advice that worked for me in the past. Hi there, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Laurie Wang. I'm a digital marketing and social media strategist who has previously built her personal brand into a business over the last few years, and I'm also a creator in the trenches, sharing my lessons and learnings along the way to help you build a life doing what you love. If that all sounds interesting, make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you get notified every time I release a new video. So before we get started in terms of how I dealt with burnout in my past, I want to mention some of the early signs of burnout that you can also watch out for so that you can address in the future before it gets too late. And some of these I've definitely ticked off the list in my past when I went through burnout as well. Number one is that if you feel mental fatigue at the end of the day. And secondly, you feel unappreciated, frustrated, and tense. And third, if you regularly experience physical pains and also aches. And lastly, is this constant feeling like you're falling behind in everything. So tip number one is definitely setting boundaries for when you're working and when you're not. And I found this to be such an important point because when you don't have clear boundaries in place like I did back in the day, I realized that I started working easily into the evenings, into the weekends, because when you're passionate about something, right, especially when you're working on your dream, your passion, you don't really have an end point for it. You kind of just keep going until there is no further point when you just literally break down. And I think that's exactly what happened in my past when I experienced periods of burnout, is that you're so excited about everything that you can easily say, oh, I got another 20 minutes right now after dinner, I'm gonna continue working on this thing. Or, oh, I'm gonna do a bit more of that editing on the weekend and I can continue working on that. One of the YouTubers I follow, Matt Davila, he talked about this in his video, The Other Side of Burnout, where essentially he talks about this sprinting mindset that many of us adopt to when we need to get, let's say, to a certain point in our deadline for whatever project or work that we're working on. So in this case, let's say you're currently writing a book, which is what my husband has been doing for the last 2 years. And I saw this in action of how he had to constantly get into the sprint mindset for a short term at least to get that deadline every single time for each stage in the process. So to quote Matt in the video, is that if we're constantly working on the sprint mindset, so we're working weekends, working the evenings, skipping sleep and skipping taking care of ourselves, then we're no longer working our optimal state and actually find that our priorities are completely misaligned. And I agree with him in the sense that before we start any project or business, we should really think about how do we want our life to look like and how do we want our work to work around that. Ultimately, this is to make sure that your life and your business values are actually aligned. Building something that you love for the long term rather than always sprinting to the finish line. So here are some boundaries I set for myself, which have worked for me in the past. So things like not checking my phone an hour before I go to sleep. Commit to a daily exercise of at least 45 minutes a day. I try to eat lunch away from my desk. And again, this is on the day where I'm usually working from home. Or if I'm working in a co-working space, I try to meet up with someone in the co-working space with a friend, perhaps, to have lunch together. Definitely not having my phone close to my bed or ever checking my phone in my bed, because I think that just basically continues a spiral of things I could do without really realizing I spent way too long scrolling through my phone. And whenever I'm with my daughter, I make sure to have my phone or any screens away from me so I can be fully present with her. The only caveat is I'm taking a photo of whatever cute thing that she's doing right now these days. And now, given that I have much more limited time during the day and having to pick my daughter up from nursery, I use the evenings when she's gone to sleep, maybe a couple hours in the evenings, to catch up on new work and emails. And then also reserve my weekend daytime for only family outings and things that we can do with family and friends. And then maybe perhaps I might use Sunday evening to go into my emails and check into them again, just because of the fact that I want to make sure I have a fresh start on Monday morning. So tip number 2 is a fairly obvious one, but at the same time, it's amazing how many of us don't do enough of that, which is get some sleep. And this is so common, but even myself are guilty of this, where I have to actually physically set a time to actually log off completely, to give myself that time to wind down before I head to bed, and to actually have a restful sleep ahead. Now, one thing I realize is that having enough hours is one thing of sleep, but also having high quality sleep is just as important. Now, research have shown this again and again, that by not getting enough sleep, we'll actually be more prone to illnesses, we're more prone to emotional swings, and actually we're more prone to making mistakes at whatever it is that we're doing during the day by having less focus. And you know that feeling when you first come back from a really long, restful vacation and you feel like you're a completely new person? Well, why not reserve that feeling for every day consistently? Why not embrace that as a long-term goal? So things like getting about 8 hours of sleep a night, and again, this differs from different people depending on who you are. And for myself, I realized that I definitely need 8 hours, but for some others, they might be happy with a lot less. So whatever it is works for you when you feel like you're waking up rested and actually able to face the day with energy. Now, tip number 3 is getting daily movement or daily workout that works for you. And again, when I say workout here, I don't mean that you have to go into the gym for 2 hours a day doing bench pressing or weightlifting. But hey, if you're doing that right now, well done for you, my friend. I really, really respect the consistency. But at the same time, if you don't currently do that, that's totally okay. And I myself actually vary what I do on a daily basis anyway. I might do one day going out for a nice walk in the sun, and the next day after that, I might go for a swim. And then maybe during some time of that week, I might go for a really hardcore, full-on cardio workout in a bootcamp class. But whatever it might be is that you want to make sure you're doing some kind of daily movement to get your body moving. And that's actually going to give you a lot better perspective, a lot happier because of all the endorphins you're putting into your body. And also you'd be surprised of the ideas and creativity that you might come back with, feeling refreshed from a break during a workout. The key thing is that you want to choose something that you enjoy. So for myself, I'm not limiting myself to one form of exercise or workout. Anything that gets my body moving, I'm happy to do that, and actually able to just enjoy the process of being consistent with it every single day. And tip number 4 is to do time tracking and also time blocking for yourself. I like to make blocks in my calendar, not only for periods of deep work, which I talk a lot about in my previous videos, but also for periods of actually break that I really, really needed throughout my day. I tend to find that if I don't schedule it in, then I won't do it because deep down, I just want to keep going, working through it, back into that sprint mindset that I talked about before, which I think is definitely not healthy for me in the long term. And I even make blocks of time in my calendar to make sure to put aside to spend with family and also friends, to make sure I'm definitely balanced in my week in terms of how much I spend on work, how much I spend on my own lifestyle, and also maintaining relationships with my close friends and family. This might sound really funny, but I even make time for lunch in my calendar and also make time for snacks throughout the day and also reading time. Now, if we don't make time for these, well, we'll find that they will easily dissipate away. And by the end of the week, you'll be looking back thinking that you're just super busy and never had time for anything. But if you actually block out your time intentionally, then you know that what you're reserving for in terms of time for yourself, time for deep work, and also time for a bit of relationship fostering with your family and friends, which are so needed these days, as we're often tied up behind our screens and our desks and not really dedicating enough time to foster them. I recommend tracking your time as well, because let's say you currently are in a state of, I don't know where all my time goes and how to actually make more time for myself, then time tracking is really useful for that. So let's say for the next month or so, I want to just keep a notebook or something you can write down either digitally or physically writing down of the time you're spending on each thing every single day that you're working on or in your life and your business. And when that period is over, I want you to look back into the data and to find out more about what are you spending your time on the most, and also where you can actually improve in terms of putting more time towards as well. Now, I'm a bit of a data geek, so I love doing this, and I think it helped me so much with insights that I never knew actually really existed. The fact that I can actually spend maybe 5 hours on a task that I only needed 2 hours on. So things like this where you can actually pick up the little discrepancies and help yourself to get back on track on making sure your time are actually spent appropriately. So I hope this video was helpful in helping you address or at least pick out the signs of the early signs of burnout and how you can actually address it before it gets too late. How to prevent it happening regularly in your journey ahead, like it had for me in the past. And if you're in the middle of it right now, and maybe that's the reason why you're watching this video, just remember that you're not alone and it happens to the best of us. And I think it's great that you're aware of it right now and you're able to address it in the part that needs attention the most in your life and business right now. I hope that you found the video useful. If you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and also share it with a friend that might also need to hear this. And let me know in the comments below if you have resonated with some parts of this video and also how you have made the changes in the past for the periods of burnout and how you were able to get back on track. I look forward to hearing from you. In the meantime, have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.